Chapter 1 of It Happened in Egypt. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. It Happened in Egypt by Charles Norris Williamson and Alice Muriel Williamson. Chapter 1. The Secret and the Girl. The exciting part began in Cairo, but perhaps I ought to go back to what happened on the Laconia, between Naples and Alexandria. Luckily no one can expect a man who actually rejoices in his nickname of Duffer to know how or where a true story should begin. The huge ship was passing swiftly out of the Bay of Naples, and already we were in the strait between Capri and the mainland. I had come on deck from the smoking room for a last look at poor Vesuvius, who lost her lovely head in the last eruption. I paced up and down, acutely conscious of my great secret, the secret inspiring my voyage to Egypt. For months it had been the hidden romance of life, now it began to seem real. This is not the moment to tell how I got the papers that revealed the secret, before I passed them on to Anthony Fenton at Khartoum, for him to say whether or not the notes were of real importance. But the papers had been left in Rome by Ferlini, the Italian Egyptologist, 70 years ago, when he gave to the museum at Berlin the treasures he had unearthed. It was Ferlini who ransacked the pyramids all about Meroe, that so-called island in the desert, where in its days of splendor reigned the Queen Candace. Fenton, stationed at Khartoum, an eager dabbler in the old lore of Egypt, sent me an enthusiastic telegram the moment he read the documents. They confirmed the legends of the Sudan in which he had been interested. Putting two and two together, the legends and Ferlini's notes, Anthony was convinced that we had the clue to fortune. At once he applied for permission to excavate under the little outlying mountain named by the desert folk the Mountain of the Golden Pyramid. At first the spot was thought to fall within the province given up to Garstang, digging for Liverpool University. Later, however, the Service des Antiquités pronounced the place to be outside Garstang's borders, and it seemed that luck was coming our way. No one but we two, Fenton and I, had any inkling of what might lie hidden in the Mountain of the Golden Pyramid. That was the great secret. Then Fenton had gone to the Balkans, on a flying trip in every sense of the word. It was only a fortnight ago, I being then in Rome, that I had a wire from him in Salonika, saying, "Friends at work to promote our scheme. Meet me on my return to Egypt." After that several telegrams had been exchanged, and here I was on the Laconia bound for the land of my birth, full of hope and dreams. For some moments distant Vesuvius had beguiled my thoughts from the still more distant mountain of the secret, when suddenly a white girl in a white hood and a long white cloak passed me on the white deck, whereupon I forgot mountains of reality and dreams. She was one of those tall, slim, long-limbed, dryad sorts of girls they are running up nowadays in England and America with much success; and besides all that, she was an amazing symphony in white and gold against an azure Italian sea and sky, the two last being breezily jumbled together at the moment for us on shipboard. She walked well in spite of the blue turmoil, and if a fair girl with golden brown hair gets herself up in satiny white fur from head to foot, she is evidently meant to be looked at. Others were looking also; they were whispering after she went by, and her serene air of being alone in a world made entirely for her caused me to wonder if she were not some one in particular. Just then a sweet, soft voice said, close to my ear, "Why, Duffer, dear, it can't possibly be you." I gave a jump, for I hadn't heard that voice for many a year, and between the ages of 4 and 14 I had been in love with it. "Bridget O'Brien!" said I. Then I grabbed her two hands and shook them as if her arms had been branches of a young cherry tree dropping fruit. "Why not Biddy?" she asked. "Or are ye wantin' me to call ye Lord Ernest?" "Good heavens, no! Once a Duffer, always a Duffer," I assured her. "And I've been thinking of you as Biddy from then till now, only—" "'Twas as clever a thing as a boy ever did," she broke in, with one of her smiles that no man ever forgets, "to begin duffing at an early age, in order to escape all the professions and businesses your pastors and masters proposed, and go your own way. Are ye at it still?" "Rather. But you? I want to talk to you." "Then don't do it in a loud voice, if you please, because, as you must have realized if you've taken time to think, I'm Mrs. Jones at present." "Why Jones?" because Smith is engaged beforehand by too many people. Honestly, without joking, I'm in danger here and everywhere, and it's a wicked, selfish thing for me to come the way I have, but Rosamond Gilder is the hardest girl to resist you ever saw, so I'm with her, and it's a long history." "Rosamond Gilder? What, the Cannon Princess, the Bertha Krupp of America?" "Yes, the gilded babe that used to be wheeled about in a caged perambulator guarded by detectives, the gilded bud whose coming out in society was called the $1,000,000 debut. Now she's just had her 21st birthday, and the Sunday supplements have promoted her to be the Golden Girl, alternating with the Gilded Rose, although she's the simplest creature really, with a tremendous sense of the responsibility of her riches. Poor child! There she is, walking toward us now, with those two young men. Of course, young men. Droves of young men. She can't get away from them any more than she can from her money. No, she stopped to talk to Cleopatra." "That tall, white girl, Rosamond Gilder? Just before you came I was wondering who she was, and when you smiled at each other across the deck it sprang into my mind that what? Oh, it seems stupid now. Give me a chance to judge, dear Duffer. Well, seeing you, and knowing, that is, it occurred to me you might be travelling with the daughter of your late Good heavens, don't say any more. I've been frightened to death somebody would get that brilliant notion in his head, especially as Monny and her aunt came on board the Laconia only at Monaco. Esmé O'Brien is in a convent school not 30 miles from there. But that's the deepest secret. Poor Peter Gilder's fears for his millionaire girl would be child's play to what might happen before such a mistake was found out if once it was made. That's just one of the 100 reasons why it would be as safe for Monny Gilder to travel with a bomb in her dressing bag as to have me in her train of dependents. She telegraphed to New York for me because of a stupid thing I said in a letter, about being lonely, though she pretends it would be too dull journeying to such a romantic country alone with a mere aunt. And as she thinks I attract adventures, it's only too true. But I couldn't resist her. Nobody can. Why, the first time I ever saw Monny she'd cast herself down in a mud puddle, and was screaming and kicking because she wanted to walk, while one adoring father, one sycophantic governess, and 2 trained nurses wanted her to get into an automobile. That was on my honeymoon, heaven save the mark, and Monny was 9. She has other ways now of getting what she wants, but they're even more effective. I laughed at her that first time, and she was so surprised at my impudence she took a violent fancy to me. But I don't always laugh at her now. Oh, she's a perfect terror, I assure you, and still more a perfect darling. Such an angel of charity to the poor, such a demon of obstinacy with the rich. I worship her. So does Cleopatra. So does everybody who doesn't hate her. So will you the minute you've been introduced. And by the way, why not? Why shouldn't I make myself useful for once by arranging a match between Rosamond Gilder, the prettiest heiress in America, and Lord Ernest Borrow, of the oldest family in Ireland? And the poorest. All the more reason why. Don't you see? She mightn't. Well, what's the good of her having all that money if she doesn't get a hold of a really grand title to hang it on? I shall tell her that Borrow comes down from Brian Boru, the rightful King of Ireland, and when your brother dies you'll be Marquis of Killena. He'll not die for 30 or 40 years, let's hope. Why hope it, when he likes nobody and nobody likes him, and everybody likes you? He can't be happy, and anyhow, isn't it worth a few millions to be Lady Ernest Borrow, and have the privilege of restoring the most beautiful old castle in Ireland? I'm sure Killena would let her. He would, out of sheer weak kindness of heart. But she's far too thickly gilded an heiress for me to aspire to. A few thousands a year is my most ambitious figure for a wife. Look at the men collecting around her, and the wonderful lady you call Cleopatra. Why Cleopatra? Did sponsors in baptism? No, they didn't. Why she's Cleopatra is as weird a history as why I'm Mrs. Jones. But she's Monny's aunt, at least she's a half-sister of Peter Gilder, and as his only living relative his will makes her Monny's guardian until the girl marries or reaches 25. A strange guardian! But he didn't know she was going to turn into Cleopatra. She wisely waited to do that until he was dead, so it came on only a year ago. It was a Bond Street crystal gazer transplanted to Fifth Avenue told her who she really was. You know Saïda Sabri, the woman who has the illuminated mummy? It's Cleopatra's idea that Monny's second mourning for Peter should be a white, nothing but white. Her idea!